Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Tien, and it's a delight to welcome you here to another fabulous episode of our Speakers Corner series. Joining me today, of course, is Jennifer Jones, the host of our series, and I'm going to defer to her to go ahead and introduce our topic and our wonderful guest today. Go ahead, please, Jennifer.
Thank you, Barbara. And hello, everyone, and welcome to another Speaker's Corner. I think everyone here has been here before. For anyone watching the recording who hasn't, Speaker's Corner is a storytelling event. And here at Project Kin, we're deeply aware of the power of storytelling and the power of a story told orally. We've had some wonderful stories over the last few months since our first event in August. And today will be no different as we have two great storytellers with us. We have Jude from Stories of Our Generations. Jude is a genealogist from Yorkshire, England, and she specialises in Yorkshire research. And we also have Kyla Bayang from Texas with us. Kyla is a genealogist and a librarian, and she brings her skills she brings her skills as a genealogist to us and as a really great storyteller. So if any of you watched the preview earlier in the week, you will know we're in for a treat today. So I'm very much looking forward to these stories. So I'll hand right over. But I will say we usually take questions at the end. We might just do things a little differently today and hear from Jude. And then we'll take, if you have a question then for Jude, we'll take them while it's all fresh in our mind. And then we'll go on to Kyla and hear Kyla's story and do question time at the end again. So over to you, Jude. Tell us your story.
Oh, thank you so much, Jennifer, and lovely introduction. And hello, everybody. If you don't understand what I'm saying, please raise your hand. So I'm going to be talking about my 3 times great uncle. So yes, an ancestor, but a little bit distant. But when I found out about this uncle, I couldn't get enough of researching him. I still can't. So I haven't finished the research. Do we ever finish research? I don't know. But I certainly have a lot more to dig deep into with Joseph. So the person I'm talking about is Joseph Hemingway. He was born in September 1842 in Yorkshire, and he died in August 1913 in South Dakota. So I'll tell you a little bit about him because he lived in a few different states. He was in Illinois, Ohio, Wyoming. If I get states and counties mixed up, I apologize. So when he started off in his birth, he was in West Yorkshire, what was then called the West Riding. And in 1842, the West Riding was becoming very industrialised. It was really, the Industrial Revolution was well and truly more than just underway. It was absolutely, in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, and which absolutely changed West Yorkshire. So he lived in what would have been a little village. We're talking about villages, but it would have been a proper village at the time that he was born, a village called Ossett, not far from Wakefield, if anybody knows Yorkshire. And the industries in Ossett were farming, the mills had really got going with the Industrial Revolution, and also with the revolution, coal mining. So Joseph, like his father, became a coal miner when he left school. He had 4 older siblings who all worked in the mills. They were rag sorters and piecers. These were a proper working class, very, very humble family, like so many around at the time. When he was 18, he was no longer living with the family. I'm guessing he, had to make room for younger siblings. And he was a boarder in a house in a town very nearby. So that is how he started out. But by the time he was 22, I find Joseph um, in the States, in the US. I don't know a lot of what happened right at that time. And so a lot of this is me piecing possibles together. I've got more, evidence based later in his life, but he traveled to New York in 1864. He actually then must have come back to the UK because he travelled again. He was on the passenger list from Liverpool to New York in 1871. So, it was getting on for 30, he was 29 at that time, I think. So, he obviously came and went. Whether he was doing what quite a few people from, sorry, excuse me, a sneeze. Whether he was doing what quite a few people I think did was going out to suss out, to recce, to see what was going on. You know, was this a viable option for me to maybe leave England and go to the States? I don't know because I cannot find the records that I really, really want. But a hunch that I've got is that there was the Moral Land Grant Colleges Acts of 1862. Now, I know that he travelled in 1864, and one of the first colleges that was set up as a land grant college, specialising in agriculture and in engineering, was in Ohio. So, what do I find out more about Joseph? He married Ida Rubel, who was born in Ohio. He married in Ohio in 1872. So a year after this second time he'd gone to America. He was certainly in Ohio for a few years. His first couple of daughters were born in Ohio. So I just wonder, did he get a grant? There were definitely UK English students who went to the Ohio college, became the Ohio State University. Did he go there? There are no records from the time I need available, but I'm still digging down into that. And it'll become apparent why I think that shortly. So there was the land grants, the Morrill Act, the universities, the colleges opening up in agriculture and mechanics, if you like. It was becoming a really big pull factor. And the push factors at the time in the West Riding of Yorkshire was it was incredibly industrial. The opportunities for someone who was just a coal miner weren't really that favourable. There was overcrowding housing because the population grew unbelievably rapidly. So there were pulls to America and there were pushes from England. So, Joseph, he settled and got married, living in Ohio with his wife, Ida. They seem to have had a really fabulous marriage. But he wasn't on the census in the States for 1880. So it's like, um, where is he? Where on earth is Joseph? Well, he returned again to Yorkshire and he bought a mill. So not coal mining. There were only really two options in the area he went back to. He went to the area where he'd grown up, there were only those two options, the mills and the coal mining. But coal mining is what he knew. However, he'd obviously found the money to buy a mill. And there are records to say that he bought Providence Mill, and you know, had more daughters. He settled down. Ida went with him, and there they were living near Wakefield. They had to have gone back to Yorkshire by 1877, working out the ages of the girls, his children. So that's why I couldn't find him on the census in 1880 in the States, but he is in the census in Yorkshire for 1881 because our censuses go by the one of the decade. So, right, okay. So Joseph's obviously found enough money doing whatever he was doing in Ohio um, to be able to buy a mill and diversify. But there's always a but, isn't there, in family history stories? In 1881, when I found him on the census and he'd been back 4 or 5 years, there was a small fire at Providence Mill, Joseph's Mill. And it caused some damage, not a huge amount, but enough for him to go bankrupt. So it went into liquidation. He was known as a flock manufacturer. That's like the cheap end, the shoddy end of the textiles. But it was in the newspapers that he went bankrupt in November 1882. So what did Joseph do next? Well, in 1883, he was back in the United States of America, in the States. And he had returned to coal mining. But lo and behold, he wasn't just a coal miner, not at all. He'd really, jumped up the ranks, if you like, and he helped set up the Cambrian coal mines in Wyoming. Hang on, I'm getting a bit mixed up now because there's Cambria mines all over the place. There's some in California, but he was in Wyoming, and he became the superintendent of the mines for Kilpatrick and Brothers, a huge mining operation, if you like. And I just keep thinking, from Yorkshire to this area he'd gone, which really, you'll all understand this in the States better than me, but it's what we kind of refer to as the Wild West at the time, still, and so different from what he was used to. But he obviously embraced it, completely and utterly embraced it. He'd gone right up the ranks. He was obviously earning quite a bit of money as a superintendent. And then the next records I find are numerous newspaper articles, and he's now referred to as Professor Hemingway, and an innovator. He has inventions, and there's a wonderful, wonderful website called Espasnet or Espacenet, and it's where all patents are kept as archives of patents. And Joseph has quite a number of patents, and seeing his amazing drawings in absolute, draftsmanship detail. And he invented what's called the coking process. So anybody who still has an open fire and you can no longer burn coal on it, you may well burn the little kind of like nuggets of coke. This is what Joseph invented, the coking process from coal to coke. And I can't tell you how many newspaper articles there are on him. And there's one little snippet in one of the newspapers from 1890 that really amuses me in a sense. And it was the mayor of Newcastle, who in Wyoming, who wrote this. Professor Joseph Hemingway, a geologist of distinction and universally conceded the best authority of coal on the two hemispheres, who has charge of Kilpatrick Brothers and Collins, vast mining interests. So Joseph had really got to, the top of his ladder. But that probably happened through the 1890s. Certainly by 1900, he was not working anymore and he was living in a hotel in Cook, Illinois. He was widowed and he'd not been employed for over 4 months, but his occupation was still a mining engineer. I've got some hypotheticals on possibly why that happened. He obviously had enough money. And then by 1910, he's living in South Dakota in Harding County, and he owns a stock farm. And he's living in very close proximity to Canadian descendants, German descendants. So it was quite multicultural. And from what I have read in subsequent articles and in his lengthy obituary, he was very, very happy. So he ended his days in farming. He'd lived in Rapid City, Spearfish, Aberdeen, Deadwood. This man from Yorkshire lived all over the place. He really did. He'd been in Philadelphia. He really well and truly travelled. He died living in the Black Hills, in South Dakota. He'd lived there for over 20 years. And kept in touch with his family. He was a very close family man. And he died, he was unwell, went to one of his daughters, and that's where he died in 1913. And in part of the obituary, it says, the above announcement will be read with deep sorrow by a wide circle of friends of the deceased in this city and country where he resided for a number of years. So that is a whistle-stop tour of Joseph. And the remarkable thing is, and I'll be quiet in a tick so that Kyla can have her turn. But the remarkable thing of all this is, those of you who've met me before will know I've still got my mum, who is 90, coming up to 98, sharp as a button. When I told Mum this story a few years ago, she had never heard of this Uncle Joseph, which is quite remarkable. But Mum and I have had some amazing chats in recent times about how the Hemingway family, that is what my mum's from, it all starts to make sense about their poverty, but their intelligence, if you like, and their absolute desire to learn. So that's my little story about Joseph.
Oh, Jude, that was just wonderful. Joseph certainly went on from his bankruptcy, didn't he? That didn't hold him down
What,
at all,
what a
Yeah,
man! When
yeah,
people say, who would you like to have dinner with from the past?
yeah, yeah.
Joseph is certainly going to be on my guest list.
Oh, there would be so many questions for him. Um,
I want to
you
know
just
what
made
he
me
did in
think.
Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you'd love to know, wouldn't you? Those gaps in the research are frustrating, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
Matt, you made me think when I was a young researcher, I was told to, and this is, 40 years ago, I was told not to stray too far from where they were born, that our ancestors didn't move around very much. And I mean, many, many times I've proved that one wrong, and you've just proved it
Yeah.
wrong today. So, yeah.
But the rest of his family all stayed local.
Right,
One
right.
nephew did go to the States, but they weren't connected. They
Yeah,
were never living in
yeah.
the same area. So we can't call
Yeah.
it chain migration by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
yeah, yeah. No, that was wonderful. Thank you, Jude. And
Thank you.
does anyone have any questions for Jude at the moment?
Could you all
Okay.
understand me?
I thought of
Yes.
one. How long have you been researching? Like, how long did it take for you to pull all of that together? That's a lot of information.
Oh, I'm easily into 15 years, Kyla,
Okay.
Yeah,
easily. And
yeah.
I'm so frustrated. And I keep thinking, if I find a money tree, I am going to go to all the places.
Yeah.
Because apparently the mine where he was with the Kilpatricks is now one of the ghost towns that people visit.
Oh,
And the superintendent's house still stands. So I would love to do that.
oh, absolutely. That would be wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Jude. That was really great. Yeah. So Carla, we'll hand over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. That was so interesting. I'm like, okay, now I have to completely shift gears because
Yes.
I'm in the world of Joseph. Okay. Anyway, okay. So mine is it feels a little bit like a forced migration, maybe. No, not really. I'm just teasing. Um, anyway, so I'm going to tell the story of my Ogle family. So my maiden name is Ogle. So I'm Kyla Ogle, and this is just to meet a little bit. I'm going to do characters first, right? So this is my great grandfather, Daniel. He went by Dan quite a bit, but all the official things say Daniel. But anyway, Daniel, and a little bit of his brother, Benjamin. I don't have as quite as much information, but I'm pretty sure that the two of them were in cahoots because they showed up at significant times in court records and things together. So that's what I'm thinking. So this place that we're going to start is Marietta, Georgia, and please forgive me if I mispronounce that because I think it might be Marietta. I'm not sure, but anyway, and the time frame is 1895. So that's going to be our kind of our anchor point. I'm going to back up just a little bit and talk just for a minute so that you kind of know what was surrounding all of Daniel. His father's name was Moses, and he had seven older living brothers and sisters, and living seven brothers and two sisters that were married. They were all older than him. Everybody was married, but they all stayed right there. Daniel was the youngest, and Ben was 7 years older than Daniel at this point. Okay. So Daniel is married. His wife's name is Selena. And the time frame that we're talking about, they have three grown daughters. I tried to remember, I think two of them were married and one wasn't really. She was just 17. She was not really grown. But anyway, so they had five children, 17, 15, little children besides the grown ones, 17, 15, 13, 11, 7, and 3. And that'll come into play in just a minute, right? So anyway, okay. So a little bit of the first things that I had found kind of further back, not in our time period, but about the time when they got married and so on. There's some poll tax records that are there. And what it shows is that Moses, the father, had land, but none of the sons had any land at all. And when Daniel first shows up, he's in two or three different times that he has a horse that's worth, I think it's $10. So that's it. That's all he got taxed on was one horse. That's all he owned. And so let's see what else. So my story kind of starts with I'm gonna talk just a little bit about how the research unfolded, because I want to bring you guys with me on this research journey of how the little pieces started fitting together. And I also want you to keep in mind that this story is absolutely not complete. I know that somewhere out there, there's some more records and some more newspaper articles, some more things. And there's a lot of places where I'm just kind of guessing about what happened. And if you're interested, I'm going to put all of it onto a post, all of the newspaper articles and things that you can actually read about it, because there's clues everywhere, and I know I haven't chased them all, so I need y'all's help. Okay, so anyway, so the story starts in I was a teenage researcher, and I was in a library in Albuquerque in the deep dark basement, and it was very dusty and horrible down there, and I was the only person down there, and it was creepy. But anyway, so what I found was one little reference to so my habit is to go to my county and my state and just start pulling off books, every single book that's for my location, and look in the index and see if our name is in there, right? So that's what I do all the time. I still do that anyway. So there's a little book called the Georgia Black Book, and there's two of them. It was volume 2, but this one guy went through a lot of the Georgia records, and he was pulling out things that were dark and just crimes and all kinds of things that he found that were juicy in the records. And he put these two books together, and sure enough, I found an ogle, and it was Dan, and there was an ogle bin, and it said requests for clemency. And I'm like, wait, what? Okay, that we got a criminal. All right, let's see what's gonna happen with this, right? So start looking for, of course, I start looking for everything else that I can find. Well, this guy actually did really good version of putting the information in there, folder number, everything. Georgia State Archives, here it is. So I wrote them a letter, and I waited 6 to 12 weeks for it to come back. And let me get to, I want to read you what the one of the papers that it was very, very, there were only 6 or 7 sheets in there, but this one was on the top, and it says, in person appeared before me the undersigned Dan Ogles, who after being duly sworn says that if he is pardoned out of the chain gang, he will leave as soon as he is able for Texas, where his wife and 5 little children are, and will make that his future home, and will never violate the whiskey laws of the state of Georgia again. And he signed it. Okay, now I know why we came to Texas. Well, maybe sort of, but wait. He left his wife and kids there? What even is this? I don't even know what's going on. Okay. So I start looking at the newspapers, right? I'm looking through all of the things, and I find let me see if I can find it real quick. I found the newspaper article that said he had been convicted, and at that time in Georgia and Kentucky, probably Tennessee, there was lots and lots of bootlegging going on. The federal government after Reconstruction was taxing everything in the South, and they were just trying to get all the money that they could out of every industry, and the liquor industry was a big one. And so what started happening is people started making their own whiskey and selling it, right? And they're under the radar. And then they started lots and lots of convictions in the newspaper. So there's an entire article, very long article, of everybody that was convicted of selling whiskey, selling whiskey in the newspaper, and Daniel's on there. But what it said was that everybody except 10 paid the fine, and then the ones that didn't, it was all of the whites. It actually says that all of the whites paid their fines except for Dan Ogles, and he and the 10 blacks were sent to the chain gang. And it says that in the paper. So I'm like, oh, goodness, chain gang. What even? All right. So I'm online trying to figure out what in the world is this and what's happening, right? So the next thing that I find, I'm thinking, okay, Texas. He was into, what was she doing? Wait, what was she doing while he was in Texas? And how was he brought back, right? So start trying to find that record. And in my mind, I got this figured out. He's selling whiskey and it was big in that area, and it's not that, whatever, it's okay. He can't pay the bond, so whatever. All right, it's good. No. Okay. So here's the next one that I found. And this one is lots and lots of help from the librarian at the Denton Public Library in Dallas. I mean, in Denton, north of Dallas, around Dallas anyway. And this is what she found. See, where is it? Hold on, not that one. Just a second. Okay. This is December of 1895. Dan Ogles of Aubrey was arrested last Thursday by Sheriff Hawkins. Okay, remember that part also. Put that one away for just a minute. Sheriff Hawkins, on advice from authorities in Marietta, Georgia, where there is an indictment against him for assault to murder. He was jailed awaiting the arrival of officers from the latter place. What? How did we skip from? Wait. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea. This is part of what I don't know about what happened, because fast forward back to Georgia. So 2 or 3 days later, now I've got a date, right? I know when this happened. I got it nailed down. So I start reading through the newspaper, and here's what it says. It says that, wait a minute. Where did it go? 1 second. It says, Mr. T.W. Glover has returned from Denton, Texas, where he went with requisition papers to bring back Mr. Dan Ogles, who had skipped out, Mr. Clover being on his bond. Aha, that's how he paid for okay, somebody else paid for it, right? When Mr. Glover learned of Ogles' departure for Texas, he used the wires freely and soon had him arrested. Colonel Foster fixed up the requisition papers. The governor granted them, and Ogles is now in Marietta jail as a result. He was indicted by the grand jury on the charge of selling whiskey. Nothing about a murder, no attempted murder, no. So what? Did they just kind of trump that all up to get help from the Texas Marshals? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea, but I thought, all right, well, I'm gonna keep digging. I am gonna keep digging. So I'm looking, and so I just started reading backwards, all the way back. I'm reading all of everything because I hadn't found anything. Lo and behold, April of that year, this is December, so back in April, I found another paper, and this one says, is very big, giant in the middle of the headline, cutting a fray. A white man and a Negro have a desperate fight, and both are bloody sufferers. Both are arrested, tried, and housed over. Okay. The Negro makes sensational accusations. So I'll just kind of tell you the story. It's a really long article. You can read all the details, but apparently Dan said that his wife sent him over to pick up laundry that was being done by this man's wife, and she wasn't home. And so he went inside to wait, and then the husband came home. Yeah. And the husband said, stay out of my affairs, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, big fight. And it sounds like Dan's and Ogle's right cheek and eye were injured and blackened with a blow. And he had, but the black man was a lot worse. He had lots more scrapes and things. There was a knife ensued. So anyway, there was a knife involved. Anyway, isn't that crazy? So but there's never, I'm reading through all of the papers that I can find, unless there's an edition that didn't survive, there's nothing that says anything about this fight except for what's at the very bottom of it. They were fined. So the judge is Judge Alexander. They appeared before him. The Jones was the black man, and he was fined $100, and Dan was fined $250. So anyway, I don't know what happened, but anyway, there we are. So anyway, okay, so I don't know. That's a big part of the story. I don't know what happened, but he is assigned to the chain gang, right? So let's go forward with that part. They got him somehow. Anyway. So then some of the records that came out about what happened next. He did serve on the chain gang for almost a year. His brother Ben was also convicted at the same time, the very same date. There are no details on Ben's. His is one line that he was convicted, and that's it. So, and then pardoned. That's it. So there was nothing with him. But Daniel's, there's quite a lot more records on what got him out. There was a petition sent to the governor, and there were 68 signatures on that petition. And one of the ones, I'm going to go back and create a what do you call it? A network, right? A fan club, and research who all of these are. I didn't see any common surnames that I could tell, that married in or whatever, except very prominently at the top on one of them, one of the pages, is a W.M. Hawkins, L.C. And I looked that up. I did some research, and apparently that means legal counsel. So Hawkins again. Okay. So the petition says, "We, the undersigned, respectfully and earnestly petition your excellency to pardon Dan Ogles, who on the 24th, has some dates and dates, because Mr. Ogle has always been a good citizen and has never been on the chain gang before. Second, that was the first point. Second, because he's a very poor man and his wife and 5 little children are dependent on him for support. Third, because he has already moved to the state of Texas, where he was convicted and was arrested there and brought back here to the said county." Okay. And then fourth, because we believe that if he is pardoned, he will go back to Texas and his family and live with them. And number 5, because we are informed and believe that he is now dangerously sick and cannot live long if he is kept confined to the chain gang. Turn the page. 2 doctors' testimonies, different doctors, that we verify that we have attended to him frequently. Let's see, frequent attacks of indigestion and palpitations. He's had a stroke of paralysis on his left arm that he's not fully recovered from. All kinds of things that, they don't think that he's going to live if he's on the chain gang any longer. So he needs to be pardoned, right? And these 68 signatures. And then there's a letter that is on letterhead from a hotel proprietor, very large, nice looking hotel that I'm sure he was probably supplying the whiskey for, more than likely, if I had to guess, right? Anyway, talks about what an upstanding citizen he is, and that they wholly endorse him being pardoned from this problem. So anyway, so he did get the pardon, and there is not a newspaper article about him being pardoned, but there is one about Ben, and Ben says this: "Attorney Fred Morris had succeeded in getting Ben Ogles pardoned from the chain gang, who was sent from this county for selling whiskey. Ogles is a white man and has a wife and 7 children. He should now devote himself to legitimate pursuits." Yeah. And from all intents and purposes, he did, because so Ben and all the rest of the family stayed in Georgia. Nobody came to Texas except Dan. And they don't, I've been in touch with a lot of different descendants of all of the different lines. None of them even have this story. Like, they don't know anything about it at all. Not even Ben's, like Ben's doesn't at all. And another really funny thing about this is that a fairly large chunk of Ben's descendants and a fairly large chunk of our descendants are complete teetotalers. Like, we don't drink at all. So just by choice, not by any conviction or anything, you know. Something, it's in our genes. Maybe we knew somehow that we should not be doing this, right? Anyway, a couple more fun things. So we do have one picture that was taken in 1898, and by the dating, like Jude did, from the baby, you know, from the children, we've dated it, and it looks like it was right after they got back to Texas. And so and everyone, it just cracks me up about the little children. And no, you heard their ages: 17, 14, 10, 11, right? You know, there was one that was little. But that's okay. They had to ham the whole thing up, right? A little bit later, I did find two very interesting articles in Texas, because, you know, we didn't have prohibition. He was not selling whiskey. However, he did win a Trades Day prize for the best dozen ears of 1909 corn. So he got a prize for the best corn that he was growing. And then a little bit later, it said he showed some fine peanuts of the merchantable size, grown from seeds that he had procured in Georgia. So he was still a farmer. He was still growing stuff. Who knows whether or not he was still making whiskey? I don't have any clue. Anyway, and one more fun little thing here at the end. Remember, I told you to keep that Hawkins in mind. The Sam Hawkins that was the sheriff that arrested him was a very prominent man there in Denton County, and there's a lot of information about him. He was also the county commissioner at a time, and so on, and so forth. And then very next generation, two of Sam's daughters married two of Daniel's sons.
Oh.
So we married into the law enforcement family. So no hard feelings at all. We're going to be one big happy family, right? And Daniel did not die anytime soon. He actually outlived a whole lot of people. He made it to the age of 78. So he lived all the way into the 1930s after all of this. So apparently most of that was all made up as well, just to get him out of the chain gang, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a lot of fun?
Oh, Kyla, that is a lot of fun. I've read a lot of novels about
Fabulous.
bootlegging. This story takes the cake.
Absolutely
Really.
fabulous, Kyla. Oh,
Yeah.
It's fun.
Does anyone have any questions for Kyla?
Okay. So I have questions for y'all, because these are the things that I thought of that I want y'all to.
Yeah,
y'all
good.
need to help me with this, okay? This if anybody didn't have any, I'm gonna tell y'all what mines are, okay? Like, who in the world jumps bail and flees the law with their entire family?
Yes.
Right? It takes 2 days by train. It was probably $18 to $20 a piece for them to get, you know. I'm surely they didn't take a wagon. I don't know. But anyway. And then I started thinking about, okay, none of those other brothers or sisters or any of the in-laws or anybody that I can find was in any trouble in any of the papers in that whole area. So how come it was just Daniel, the baby, that was always in trouble?
Yeah.
But how in the world did he ever bail himself out of all of that trouble? I'm certain they were doing it. Yeah, they were backing him out. So maybe they're the ones that got him out of town too. I don't know. So and then my other question is why? Okay, so the little town that he went to by Denton is called Pilot Point, where they started. And I'm like, why Pilot Point? I don't know. Was it where that's how much money they had to buy the ticket? I don't know. Anyway, and then my next question is, how did they know that that's where he was? Who told?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
They
know,
published it in the paper before they got him almost.
the only thing I want to know, Kyla, is
Huh?
when are you working on the screenplay? Because this is a movie.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And actually in a bigger picture, I'm only half joking about that. In a bigger picture, it is a reminder of how the screenplays for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid or any of these kinds of movies come from real stories that all of us have. And here we have stories
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
a small industrializing town at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in West Riding, England, comes to this Wild West.
Mhm.
It's breathtaking.
It really is, isn't it? But Kyla, I've got a soundtrack for the film because I now have I've got an earworm because all I can hear in my head now is Sam Cooke singing The Chain Gang.
Right.
And you will be too young to know that song.
No, I do know that song. That's a good one.
And that's all I can hear in my head. So we've got the soundtrack for the film already.
Right. There you go. There you go. There
Just
you go.
need to pull
Yes.
together some TV moguls and we're off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd
Exactly.
go to that film.
Exactly.
Then we could have Joseph on the scene with his money bailing out.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got this.
It would definitely be
It's all fun and games, but I'm half serious because we may not be the ones to produce this film. And even, consider 20, 30, 50 years ago, it was a motion picture done in Hollywood. But today it is a small film done for a small device that is, whatever. And maybe not ourselves, but perhaps our grandchildren could put this together themselves for a project because they want to, because of a passion project.
That would be lovely. I mean, Kyla's story would just be a sellout, wouldn't it?
Never mind your Daniel, Jude.
Yeah.
I mean, the if you think about the trans cultural, the cultural differences. He could very well sell himself as a lord among
Yes.
in these, the same kinds of dusty villages that
Yeah.
Kyla is talking about in the Old West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hear you, Bill. I hear you. You've got your Texas roots too, right?
Yeah.
Think about how they just like completely reinvent themselves, like how easy it seems like it was easy. I know it was hard for him, but it seemed like every time, right? You were saying every time he went somewhere back, or like just back and forth, just decided to move home again and for a little while.
Exactly. The other thing that is a similarity is your family knew nothing of this story. My family knew nothing of Joseph. It's like mind blowing, really, isn't it? That we've
It
unearthed
is.
this, like,
that was the same
100
thing with
years
Bill's
later.
family, right? That we listened to
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just so
And
cool.
what joining them both together, I can't help thinking about the gaps in the research that you both, were banging your heads up against. And, I remember when I was young, I couldn't handle those gaps. I just wanted all that information, and I wanted it now because I was young. But, you powered on and you you know there's gaps there, but the best thing you can do is, you know, just say what you think might have happened, which you've both done, and both prophecies sound reasonable. So we mustn't let a gap in a story stop us.
Who knows?
Yeah, it is
Something might come
frustrating
up
though.
tomorrow
To be
that will
able to-
totally change it.
I'd love to be able to find out what happened in Ohio. Is my thoughts about the college, the university,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that right? How did he become a professor if he didn't go to a college anywhere? I've
Yeah.
so many questions. But I think he was a real socialist.
Yeah.
His family back in the UK they were trade unionists and all sorts of things in coal mining. But I think he was a real socialist because I only found out from one of his direct descendants through Ancestry, a lovely man called Alan, who we've been in contact with. And Alan told me that Joseph used to write poems. He was a poet as well.
Oh, wow.
And I've got one of his poems. I've just been writing it out actually to take to my mum tomorrow. And it's called Contentment. And he's absolutely playing heck about the royal family. And, it could have been written today, couldn't it? But absolutely playing heck about the royal family and all their wealth and all these other wealthy people. But where is the contentment? He's a real deep thinking man. I'm guessing, I would like to think that he left the mine. I just get my slide for me to read off. He left the mine out of principle and went then, and he'd have lost his superintendent house and ended up living in the Kimball Hotel in Cook, in Illinois. Because when he'd done his patent for the coking process, after it had been issued, it was conveyed to the property of the company. Now, the company had used false affidavits for the employees. So when the employees went there and got their jobs, they thought that they would be able to apply for a homestead on the lands adjacent to the company and then own the properties. I mean, that's a real good inducement to go work at a coal mine, but they'd used false affidavits. And so the employers ended up with nothing. And that's at the same time that Joseph left. So I'm just wondering, did he think, oh, this is just not on, as we'd say over here, this is really bad. You don't do that to your employees.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's another one of my hunches.
Yeah.
But it adds up.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And Kyla, wouldn't you like to know about the family back in Texas?
Yeah.
That could be another part of the movie, what life was like for them while he was, on the chain gang. And really couldn't have been easy.
And the privilege that got him out.
Was he ever going to come home?
A couple of the photos that I found, there are a few photos of them, and they're all in stripes, and they're always have shovels. So I'm thinking road work is what they were probably doing.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is. Any more questions from anyone? That was just from both of you, Kyla and Jude. It was just absolutely amazing to hear your stories. And you both took us through your little journey through the research. And I just love that. It was just great to see other people have research problems too and overcome them and write their story. So no, it was really great. Barbara, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I think I did see Marion. You popped off the mute
Yeah.
button. Did you want to add something?
Oh, I was going to say goodbye, but it's a little too
Oh.
early for that.
Oh.
I will say to both Judy and Kyla, every family has a colorful character. Some of the others
Yeah.
feel muted, but then these stand out, and they're the reason we're talking now about
Yes. Yeah.
screenplays and personalities. I
Mm,
did have a
yeah.
question for Judy. I see her background is Yorkshire, the stone walls and all of that. And you mentioned all creatures great and small. Uh, does uh, the production of that PBS series affect your village?
Yes.
And in a good way, bad way? I would
Well,
believe it would bring in money.
yeah, we have had a number of filming situations in the village over the decades. And we had one about 15, 20 years ago, and 15, yeah, about 15 years ago. It was horrendous, Marion. They were awful. The whole program was awful. It was really,
Oh.
really bad. Really, really bad. Most of us all complained. I'd have a knock on the door, open the door, not knowing who it was, and there'd be the mic and the cameras there, and I was nothing to do with it. It was really bad. So then we had a bit of a gap because nobody in the village wanted a film crew again. But oh gosh, are we still recording? Yeah, never mind, never mind. Um, but
We can
now
cut that out.
this
We can fix that.
it's yeah. But now the film crew for All Creatures, Great and Small, are fabulous. They are
Oh,
so fantastic. They don't close the square, which is the way through the village. They don't close it for a whole day or a whole week or anything. They are so mindful of people who need to get on with their lives. The actors are all lovely. I can't fault it, but it does. We do get coach loads coming just to watch
Yeah.
the
oh, right.
filming. So the
Yeah.
Chamber
Yeah.
of Trade love that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, it's
Well,
really good to hear that, Jude.
the characters are so endearing. If you had said
Yeah.
they're rascals, I would be so disappointed. I'd
No,
probably
Yeah.
stop
no,
Same.
watching.
no, that they are everybody to do with it are really lovely, really, really
That's
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only other
That's
thing
all.
I wanted
Thank you.
wanted to add here, thank you so much, Marion. The only other thing I wanted to add here is Diane. Diane made a very quiet remark in the chat, but noted here as far as the labor union movements and the work going on in that incredible industrialization area at the beginning of the industrial revolution that transformed the planet. And
Absolutely.
Leonora, the work that Diane has been doing in an ongoing research for years and years. If you
Yeah.
want to say a few words about that, Leonora, I mean, Diane, because it comes up a bit. And then I will drop a little plug for some of the events that we have coming up, Jennifer, then we can button this up. We can keep the recording going. I mean, keep the program going if you'd like after the recording. So the rest of you watching in video won't necessarily know what happened because we'll talk about it after the recording is off. Go ahead, please, Diane.
Oh yeah, I've been working on this Leonora story. It seems like forever. I feel like she's moved into my house. And she was 1849, born in Cork. Family brought her over in 1852 to the North Country of New York. And she lived a very normal little kid life on a family farm. Mother was brilliant. I think she was fallen nobility. She was Irish Catholic, and nobles, Irish Catholics had their land and titles removed, but the family still had some money, and she had been educated in my God, I can't think. I've got a cold. Dublin, that's it. She spoke
Yeah.
like 6 languages. Now, Leonora's father wouldn't let her go to school, and my suspicion is that he didn't want her going to a public school and being with those heathen Protestants instead of the Catholics. And as such, she was self-taught by her mother. But what does that give you as a woman and an Irish woman, Irish Catholic woman, when you're widowed in 1871, and shortly after her daughter died, and then she had two little children and had to find a way to feed them, and found herself at this hellacious text mill in Amsterdam, New York. And during that period, she became active with the Knights of Labor, which was this all-inclusive labor union. Up until that time, labor unions were segregated by skill and by religion and being male and white.
Yeah.
This was a much more inclusive organization. Freed slaves were involved, were able to have access. Those up-and-coming Italians were involved. You had Jewish people. So it was just this really quite an amalgam. Yeah. And she, and what I'm writing about is how, why haven't we heard of her? Because she went on to become a national labor leader, and then head of the a temperance league, and which was really about curbing domestic violence and making sure that people weren't paid in booze anymore. They were actually paid with dollars so they could feed their children. And so these are all these little things that are coming out. So yeah, socialism is
that's just fab.
I mean, that's the kind of thing, these stories, each of your stories, and as I remember them as nuggets and can think to introduce you to each other, is a reminder to me of why it is so vitally important that we get these stories told, get these stories captured, get these stories preserved, the continuous research that's going to happen from generation to generation to generation as we pass down the facts that we know, how we know them, but keep working on the stories is what ultimately has the one story revealed to become the next movie that becomes iconic of whatever. But the stories are in us. And so that's, I have, go ahead.
Just as Diane says, why don't we know about her?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Diane hasn't finished the book yet.
I do have some ideas behind that. But one thing I did want to mention, because of what Kyla had said, is that Leonore's husband had, when I was researching him, and there's very little to be known about him, the one who died, he was in jail. And he was jailed at the same time that they were supposed to be married. And he was jailed for trying to kill somebody while imbibed with alcohol. So now you got the head of the Temperance League, whose husband is, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I contacted the Bureau of Prisons, and he had been given a full gubernatorial pardon, although all the records associated with that have since been lost. That burning of a building that always seems to take place whenever you get that research that it went up in flames. So I think that might have been her motive. And that's what I'm going to, what made her so passionate about this.
What is the
but Bureau of Prisons, that might be another, if you're ever looking for people who you think, because the newspaper articles told about the incarceration and so on, but they did not talk about the pardon. So that explained that.
Yeah, there's much more to come on Leonore's story.
Fascinating.
Actually, it's lovely to have a bonus story today, so we weren't expecting that, and to revisit Leonora, who we met back in, I think, about June when Diane came along and told us about her. So yeah, the connections are amazing, aren't they? Between all these stories. So maybe Barbara might pop a link. I'm sure she's already thought to do that to Diane's, to that story of Diane's. So thank you again, Jude and Kyla. We're up at past the hour now, so we probably should wrap it up. We could probably keep on going forever too. Thank you for coming along and just joining the spirit of storytelling and telling us your stories, and keeping us entertained and making us laugh and making us wonder. It's just been absolutely wonderful. So we'll be back again in a month at the second Friday of the month. We're actually back on the Monday before with a preview. And our the speakers are Crystal Lorimore and Kelly Cedarfield. And off the top of my head, I can't. Crichton's Cabin is Crystal's newsletter, but I can't just remember the name of. It's on the tip of my tongue, of Kelly's. But we'll pop that in the
Pawnee
notes.
language.
Oh, that's it. Pawnee language. Yeah. So they have interesting stories to tell also. So thank you also to everyone for coming along and for joining in the fun today. And we'll see you in a few weeks' time. So back to you, Barbara.
Thank you so much. And of course, a small clarification, since of course she is talking to us from tomorrow, that means that her Friday is our Thursday.
Oh, yes. I'll have to keep remembering.
Tomorrow, our Friday, your Saturday, we have a talk at the same time slot in a Substack Live version with Emma Cox, who will be doing a quick preview of her program next week. That's a fun one because she's going to be diving into military. And of course, as always, she has such an extraordinary knowledge of resources and pathways that is always so inspiring. Then on Sunday, I have another Substack Live program, and this one is with Dr. Mary Marshall, who is picking up on our Stories 250 series. And I'm especially touched about this one. She'll be picking up on a story of her own church, where she has been an active member since childhood in Augusta, Georgia, and telling the story of the Springfield, I believe it's the Springfield Baptist Church. She'll have a post out later today, I expect, to provide some background, and it's going to be an exciting twist on our Stories 250 series this time, bringing in place as well as people. So this will be a fun series as it continues, reminding you all just how important your stories are, because that's what we're all about, right? Okay, well, thank you all. I'll stop the recording here, and you can stay on and chat further if you'd like. Here goes. Thank you. Bye-bye now.